started, and I'll ask Norm to lead us
Lead us.
in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Norm. I'll ask for approval of the minutes of July 18, please. Moved by Brad, seconded by Troy. Any additions or corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have anyone that signed up to speak, or Rachel? No, we didn't. All right, Kevin Loki, our local labor monitoring report.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I have our July 2023 monthly report here, covers our visits between July 1st and July 31st. During this period, we made 68 monthly site visits. We had 2 follow-up visits during that period. Checked residency with 521 workers. We had 6 issues of non-compliance, all of which were no proof of residency. USRE Manitow's current overall was 73.4%. As of July 31st, all monitored sites were in compliance at the time of our inspection, and there were no new COMIDA signs delivered during that period.
Any questions for Kevin?
Hi.
Troy?
How are we continuing to monitor and get to our 73.4%? How we get to that number?
Based off of, they've sent me, they've kind of sent me these little status update reports. They haven't been sending those as of late. So I'm kind of just going off the numbers that I get from my inspections when I'm with them, which has pretty much been all around 100% for the last few visits I've done, with a very sparse workforce they have there, which is averaging around 10 people. And they're just about done because everyone from Layton is about to be off that site. Amazon is still in there, obviously, but Layton, who I've been dealing with, is just about fully completed. So there have not been too much manpower totals to add to the percentage. So it's kind of remained roughly in the same spot that it has been.
So if we note in the minutes that that number is pretty, I don't know how we're getting to that number, or and how could we better get data to support that number, because it's been staying consistent month over month. That just, I just want to know, understand better how we get there to get to that.
Robin and I might have some additional information that we can share following the meeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kevin? Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, have a great day. Thank you.
Brian LaFountain for local labor exemptions. Good afternoon, Brian.
Good afternoon. All right, so this month I have 2 local labor exemptions to report on. Both of them are at the Li-Cycle North American project. The first one is related to the need for welders and pipe fitters from the local 13 Union Hall. They needed some qualified journeyman welders and pipe fitters. The local 13 was at full employment, and there were no other qualified journeymen, so that we gave an exemption for local 13 to pull from outside of the local labor area to satisfy that. And the second one was related to, again, Li-Cycle North America. They were looking for painters from the local 150 to work for TEC Coatings there. Spoke with the folks at local 150, and they did not have anybody on the bench that was qualified to do it. So they brought in some folks from outside of the local labor area that were members of the local 150. So that was both of them for this month.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian? All right. Thank you very much. Greg, our financial report, please.
Thank you. Yeah, financial through July 31st, 2023, our operating cash is down about $830,000 due to the deficit of our expenses exceeding our revenue for the year. In terms of our printed cash, which is our workforce development fund, just a recap of the each month, we were generating $5.18 million of fees to support that program. 3.92 has been committed against that. The fee was about $1.3 million to support, future programs. Of that 5.1 that we have, we have spent to date about $945,000. So that's the use of the 4.3 million. In addition, what you'll see next month on August 1st, we did invest in T-bills, a little over $10 million, ranging, rates from 5.3 to 5.08 in 3-month increments, basically from 3-month maturities to about 18-month maturities. We'll continue to report on that each month as we go. In terms of our overall, all of our balance sheet items, according to the expectations, our fee income was a pretty good start to the second half of the year. We generated $74,000 of fee income for the month of July. We do anticipate these next 6 months being a little bit better from the fee side than the first 6 months. As we knew we're a little bit slower, we do see some projects closing over the next 6 months. And as you can see, the interest income is up. All of our accounts, even before the T-bills, were generating 3%. All of our cash, money market, savings accounts, so that's good to see that. And overall, our expenses are pretty much tracking according to budget expectations. Our program development, which represents our workforce development funds, we do anticipate again that increasing as over the next 6 months, payments going out, additional expenses that we have budgeted for. So that really represents a timing thing overall with respect to the shortfall in the budget. But overall, healthy balance sheet, everything's according to budget expectations so far.
Okay, great. Any questions for Greg? Very much. Okay, Anna, let's talk about our first project. And it's Ren Square.
Ren Square LLC, a real estate holding company, is proposing to renovate a 10,000 square foot building in the city of Rochester. This property is located in the East Main Historic District and will transform this long vacant and blighted property into a mixed-use building. The first floor will be used as commercial space, and the second floor will contain 4 apartments, 3 of which will be market rate and 1 set aside as affordable. This project is a recipient of Restore New York funding and is a priority project for the city of Rochester. The $2.5 million project is projected to create 1 new FTE over the next 3 years, and the applicant is seeking approval of sales tax and mortgage recording tax exemptions only. The benefit to incentive ratio is 17:1.
Thanks, Anna. And we have Pat Lemoyne with us this afternoon. Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to elaborate a little bit on the project? And are these your pictures?
Yes,
Okay.
I sent those over to Bob.
They tell us quite this blight story right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I work for Patrick and Luke Dutton, who are the developers on this project, and their efforts to revitalize this block have been ongoing for a few years now. It started with the Glenny Apartments, which are right around the corner at 190, 194 East Main Street. That building looked similar to this one, probably even worse. And now there's 25 apartments, and they're almost fully leased up, and ground floor commercial space that we hope to have leased up soon. And now to kind of complete this corner, we are coordinating with Home Leasing, who I know was in here in June. They own the buildings on the corner. We're right there on 9-17 South Clinton, which is this one. And we're kind of coordinating with them to time this up, out with the old, in with the new at the same time, so that we can bring this corner online all at once. And our plan for this building is to have 3 to 4 ground floor commercial tenants. We're targeting usability for everyone from employees in the area, convention center visitors, and especially people who use bus stations. So we're thinking coffee, grocery, breakfast, and then above that will be 4 apartments, 3 of which are market rate, 1 of which is affordable, and that's our plan with that. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Red.
Is there a concern for filling the commercial space on the first floor at all?
No, I don't believe so. Just, and what makes me say that is the apartments that we finished around the corner, there's already a lot of interest in that commercial space, so we're pretty confident that.
How does it sync with the downtown development of the opportunities through the DTR, the state program?
I'm not,
This building actually isn't getting any downtown revitalization grant money, but it's coordinated with some of our other projects around the corner, so we're trying to time it all, bring them online. Same period. That leasing project on the corner, which has received about $4 million with incentive, and we're trying to coordinate our efforts with them so that the time of the project works to their protocol, minimize street shutdowns, and overall impact block. One leasing looks like they're going to be starting probably in February, so we've been prepping this building so that time will affect with them.
And then how will this impact Division Street, the role of Division Street, and what is the future? What's your future outlook for Division Street?
Well, right now, drive down Division Street looks like an alleyway, and that's not great. So this project is help kind of turn it inside out, combined with a couple other buildings we're working on that'll make that road be actually a destination. We're going to have one building's going to get dismantled down towards the old Metro Market, which is going to connect Division Street and make this where it's a place that can be a walkable location instead of just a dreaded alley. So this building's on the corner of that street, and it's going to be a nice, inviting entrance to it. We have part of the garage on the side. We have a lot of new storefront, beautiful facade on this building that's going to make it pop instead of just be this nice.
I know at what point in time you had a plan to basically connect Stone Street to Division Street. Is that still part of
It's
this?
still part of this. That's another building down the street that we own, and we're working with the city quite a bit, and we're close to being able to actually announce what's happening. So that's all coordinated together, and it's part of our long-term plan. Obviously, it's a 3 or 4 year plan, but the end result, I think everyone's very happy.
And the funding from Restore New York, Round 7, the RG&E Brownfield redevelopment, RG&E Commercial Corridor, and New York State Historic Tax Credit. That's all applicable to this
yes,
project now. Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
correct.
And you're ready to start now.
Yeah, our plan is to start in the fall.
Yeah, we've already started some development on it. We've actually done some work inside the building already. We'll help speed this up and make it coordinate with all these efforts so that it's going to go quickly.
Coordination of the two buildings, I think that's terrific. All right, questions from the board on this project? Okay, thank you. There was a public hearing on this item on August 10th. Were there any comments?
No problem.
I'll ask you a few labor questions. Are you aware of our local labor policy?
Yes.
And do you anticipate any local labor exemptions at this time?
No.
And are you aware that any exemptions need to be requested 45 days in advance?
Yes.
Great, thank you. The seeker process is complete, and now I'll ask for a motion for inducement and final resolution approving sales tax and mortgage tax recording tax exemptions. Any question? Thank you. One on the motion,
Second.
first and second. Any other questions? We'll take a roll call. Jay is absent. Norm?
Yes.
Troy?
Yeah.
Rat?
Yeah.
Lisa is absent. Joe is with us.
Yes.
Zoom, thank you. And Ann is a yay, so motion carries.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Work. Yeah. Okay. All right, so we're moving right into project modifications. For first one, Durst Imaging. Anna?
Yes, Durst Image Technology, US LLC, a manufacturer of digital inkjet printing systems for large image formats, is renovating a 40,000 square foot facility in the town of Penfield. And this project was approved by the board in October of 2022 for mortgage reporting tax exemption, sales tax exemption, as well as a property tax abatement. The applicant is requesting an increase in project costs of $1,653,000 and an extension of the sales tax exemption through December 31st of 2024 due to construction delays and increases in material and labor costs. The new sales tax exemption is not to exceed $202,000, and the total project cost is now $4,696,150.
Okay, thank you. And we have Tiffany Grutschau, Director of Accounting and Administration, with us today.
Yes.
Welcome, and would you like to elaborate a little bit?
Yes,
That's
thank
a pretty big bump in
Yeah.
expenses, and we'd like to know more.
Sure. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to share more about the current status of our project. Like Anna said, my name is Tiffany Grutschau. I'm the Director of Accounting and Administration for the North American operations of Durst. Since the last time I stood before this board at the start of the project, we've closed on the purchase of 667 Panorama Trail West in Penfield. That happened in March of this year. And we selected Hanlon Architects and Nichols Construction to partner with on the redesign of the building, converting it from a fitness center to our new North American headquarters. Construction started just a few months ago in June. The original application included our best estimates at the time, prior to really getting Nichols and Hanlon in there to look at the status of the building and what it would really take to convert it from a fitness center into office space. Included in the modification request, there's an additional $350,000 for materials, along with $428,000 for labor relating to the renovation of the building. This increase can be attributed to the following. First, 2 of the 3 racquetball courts are being divided so that there's a top and a bottom floor. That was not originally anticipated, but we really need to maximize the square footage of the building as we continue to grow. The next thing is we are converting the 3rd racquetball court into our employee lounge and kitchen. This is really going to be a focal point of the building, a place for employees and guests to gather throughout the day. And we're preserving a little bit of the fitness center theme in there. It's really important to our CEO to make sure that people remember that this was a fitness center for so many years. And so we're going to leave the racquetball court in that lounge area as a remembrance to the building's time as a fitness center. A third contribution is the pool area is being converted into our training center. And we've decided to rebuild out the adjacent locker rooms and convert that into assembly space for a portion of our business that's currently located in the Atlanta, Georgia area. We've decided to bring some of that operations up here into Rochester. Originally, that space was just going to be open rooms, but we were over there the other day and that building is all cement blocks throughout and no elevation is consistent. So it's very important. We had to get the structural engineers in there along with the architects and the general contractor to really survey that area and figure out how to make it feasible for us to convert that into production space. They currently have to jackhammer down 5 inches in order to level out the entire area because we have crates with machines in them that we're going to be wheeling across the floor on air skates. So it's people manpower to be able to push through, and we're struggling with height of the ceiling and elevation of the floor to make sure that it's a smooth transition between those 2 areas. And that cost is a little bit higher than what we had originally anticipated it to be. Another contribution to this is that we need to replace some of the HVAC units that are at the end of life, and a whole new duct system is being input to really make sure that temperature control throughout the whole building is adequate for offices and manufacturing space. In addition, the whole place is currently gutted and we're redoing electrical wiring throughout, along with new lights being installed throughout the entire space. That's all related to the actual building increase in costs. Another significant portion of the increase that I requested is related to furnitures and fixtures. We made the decision to replace the majority of our current office furniture. As we've grown and are continuing to grow in headcount, we currently have a mismatch of office furniture, most of which is 20+ years old, that if we go to move it, it's probably going to fall apart in the move. And so we want a consistent look throughout and make sure all of our office furniture is matching. So we've been working with several different vendors, and the price is a lot higher than what we had originally anticipated. Along with fully furnishing that lounge area that's going to be a focal point of the building, and a main conference room area, so that we can bring guests and people from our headquarters into the space. Currently, we don't bring customers and guests into our current office space. And then another aspect of the increase is related to audio visual, IT network, security, and access controls. We had originally left that out completely of the initial budget, because this is the first time we bought a building and they had to redo it. So we didn't know we don't know what we don't know. And as we've gone along the process, we're learning as we go along. And so we've been meeting with several different companies and trying to find the best fit for us with the most cost-effective way. And it's looking like the total cost for IT infrastructure is around $250,000. So Nichols' team is currently on track to complete the renovations by the end of February 2024. And then once that's complete, we can start the process of moving in, which is going to take us a little bit of time to set up warehouse racks, brand new furniture, all of that stuff. But we're hoping, fingers crossed, as long as nothing gets in our way, to hopefully be in by April, May of 2024.
Tiffany, that was very thorough. It's what we were hoping for, because it was a pretty big increase, but those are pretty substantial changes or additions to the budget. Any questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have a couple. How many FTEs are moving from Atlanta to?
We're not moving any, we're adding additional people here
Instead of adding them?
instead of adding them there.
Okay, how many?
There will at least be one. The space that we're building out will have 2 bays in it to produce 2 machines at a time. So we'll start with 1, possibly 2 people in that area.
And then second, say this with a straight face. Who did your initial estimates for you?
BJB Construction.
Okay.
Any other questions? Right, I'll ask for a motion to approve an increase in project costs and extension of the sales tax exemption through December 31, 2024. Motion made by Brett. Second by Norm. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that's the end of the new projects for now. The next item on the agenda is our governance committee report. The governance committee did meet on August 7th and discussed potentially expanding the local labor area. The committee talked about making projects first look for labor in the current 10-county area, and then look also at best efforts that have been exhausted, and the project representative could then look outside the area but within New York State. So this is just all under discussion in the governance committee. and there'll be some continued sessions on that. So there's nothing that we need to take action on today, but the meetings have been very productive. Any questions on that? Okay. The next committee meeting that we had was the compliance committee report. And we had a number of waivers requested by project owners. It was a fairly lengthy list, more so than we've seen in the past. And so this is an instance where we want to have more information before we grant the waivers. You know, particularly what we've done in the past, how long they've been given waivers and so on, so that we have a better understanding of the delays. And yes, we have in 2022, well, we reviewed this separately. We reviewed the sales tax recapture report, which provided information on all companies that exceeded the authorized amount of sales tax savings. And in 2022, 4 companies exceeded the authorized amount of sales tax savings, and 3 of the 4 companies have repaid those amounts that exceeded amount exceeded to New York State, and we expect that the 4th company will be doing so shortly. We reviewed all the companies that have failed to make their required payments under their respective pilot agreements. We're sending demand letters to each requiring payment within 30 days of the letter, and reach out to the appropriate municipality. And if the company fails to pay, the project may be subject to a penalty and or termination. And we also, as I mentioned, reviewed the companies that are complying with their pilots and requests for waivers. And once we have additional information on those, we'll again, the compliance committee will. And there's no action expected today. So any question on that? Okay. All right. We're going to now move on to the executive director discussion items. And the first one is Rochester Child First Network, and it's a workforce development fund request.
Thank you, Anne. As this board is aware, in 2022, in connection with the COMIDA modernization initiative and in light of very significant project activity with major job creation attached to it, the board created a workforce development fund such that COMIDA could enter into contracts with organizations serving the Monroe County workforce to make sure that our workforce is equipped with the tools necessary to meet job creation demands and the needs of industry. And in recent months, staff and the administration worked on looking at some additional valid proposals and ideas for the Workforce Development Fund as we have remaining resources available. And this program, as well as some subsequent items here on the agenda, came to light. The Rochester Child First Network has been around since 1857, in fact, which I found very positively surprising. And this is an organization and an initiative that supports 188 in-home childcare providers in Monroe County. And these are independent businesses that care for more than 2,000 children in Rochester. And all of these businesses are in Monroe County, and over 98% of them are owned and operated by entrepreneurial women of color. This is a $300,000 one-year request, and those dollars would go towards supporting new childcare business startups and providers, and provide for documented eligible expenditures such as training costs, books, educational materials, furnishings and equipment, etc. And I understand that Jeff Hoffman from the Rochester Child First Network is with us here today to go into some detail about this program and this request. And I'd like to welcome Jeff to the podium.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to be before the board today. Two things, just wanted to, you have great staff. I really appreciate being considered.
Oh,
as
thank
part of
you.
this
We think
process.
so.
And number two, I have no, information about jackhammering through 5 feet of cement or anything. This is more of a personal thing than a business thing. You've just received this. I think you just received something that I can run through it really quickly. Before I start, let me throw a couple numbers at you. One is 3-to-1. Throughout Monroe County, 66% of the census districts are what's called child care districts. And what that means is that there's at least 3 families, 3 children looking for a space for childcare for every 1 licensed childcare provider available, which is, in a sense, is a great news for us because the business opportunity is there. The demand is out there. In the city itself, in some of the census districts, that ratio is 9 to 1. Up to 9 children in some census districts waiting for 1 spot at a licensed child care center. Several went out of business. A lot went out of business during COVID. RCN since 1857 survived that. We've always, I shouldn't say always, since the 1980s, we've worked with this Family Child Care Satellites of Greater Rochester, which is the group that oversees, that works with these 188 in-home providers. How it's always worked is they come to us and say, we'd like to start a business. With your help through this initiative, we'd like to reach out to them. We'd like to find providers. We'd like to find people who'd like to go into business and help them do that with your support. So, Family Child Care Providers. If you want to say anything, this is Anne-Marie Steffen, our executive director. I talk way too much. Did you? Okay. Yeah, it started in 1981. It's always been very privately financed in the sense that a lot of our support comes through the Rochester Area Community Foundation, plus other private foundations. We do have some interest income because people who join, there is a membership fee, but most of it is supported. Most of the functions that we do is supported by Community Foundation, by other funders, and by RCN's own resources. We put our own money into this. Yeah, it's maybe 1 question. And just a couple more numbers that, in-home child care business provided 24% of toddlers, and as I mentioned before, 10% of providers went out of business in the past 3 years. So there is a great demand for this. When we talk about who we're serving, as you well know, childhood poverty in Rochester is high. 2%. Our FCC providers, we have 1 here today for her. Most of them reside in the city now. They provide for 2,000 children a year. And when you think of that, we talk about ourselves. And I know when I go to the Economic Development Committee meetings, it's not just those 2,000. That enables people to go to work. That enables moms to get so it is, we love the kids, and it is the kids who are being served, but we're part of the infrastructure. And I know sometimes that term is overused, but without effective child care, those parents can't get to work and employers can't do their. It is a partnership, like I say, it's funded quite a bit by the Community Foundation. We work closely with Food Link, we work closely with CSEA. We have a program with CSEA where a lot of our providers become CSEA members. And once they do that, then they can get training that's complimentary, it's paid for by CSEA. Our providers need 30 hours of training every 2 years to remain licensed within New York State. So it's not a one-time investment by CSEA. It's something that they continue to do. We work with child care counseling for their expertise. In the future place, there are other real partners in the program. So it's community-wide. It's something that we've been working for the city of Rochester for many years. What we're asking for with this $300,000 is kind of breaks into 4 main buckets. One is we're asking $175,000, which would be to new provider, person who's never had a child care in their home, to open up business. we would like to get at least 10 new providers within the next year. Now, to open up the business, we've done some conversations with our folks. Some people can go into a childcare business for $3,000 plus. We talk about the initial training, talk about the licensure, talk about getting some furniture they may need, getting materials for their kids. Other people, the expenses could be quite a bit higher to get into business. One of our larger providers, her total expenses are about $8,400 a month. It's over $100,000 a year business. And to get into business, it'd be hiring some new staff, it would be ADA requirements for their house to make sure their house is accessible for so many kids. So the bulk of your investment would be going to, let's get some new businesses started. Let's get some new childcare businesses started to add to our current 188. Our current providers, they've been through some tough times, and we would set aside about $80,000 for them. We would be like a sub-grantee of you. They would come to us and say, hey, I need $500 for this. I need $1,000 to buy some new materials, to get some new equipment, to get some new furnishings. We would, in fact, would be reviewing those proposals. We're also asking out of this for $10,000 in the budget for marketing. We've never done this before in the sense that people come to us and say, we'd like to start a new childcare business. We want to get this word out. And working with COMIDA, working with Child Care Council, working with others, we don't want these just to be at random. We want to look at these childcare deserts, especially in the city of Rochester, and say, where are we needed? As a matter of fact, this conversation started with the RRP, with the Regional Redevelopment Program that's talking about the East Main Street corridor. We don't have a lot of providers on the East Main Street corridor. It'd be great for us to be able to get the word out there. If you want to start a childcare business, we can help. We can help with your business. And then a portion of it is set aside for our own staffing and overhead to run the program. That's kind of how it plays out. Yes.
So is there a cap to a startup out of the 175? Is there a goal of how many businesses we're trying to get started, and how much would one business be eligible for?
Yeah, so if we start 10, the average would be 17.5.
Right.
That's an excellent question. We haven't talked about a cap, but we're certainly not going to put $25,000 or $30,000 into one startup. So
the 10 is over 2 years, right? Into from 2023 to 24.
Right.
The 10 new startups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is a great conversation that we would have with you. You know, off the top of my head, maybe $25,000. We certainly don't want to spend all of it on a couple of providers. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You state on your second slide that you lost 10% of your providers in the last 3 years. What are the roadblocks, or what were the roadblocks, the pitfalls for the providers, and how will this program assist them from failing?
Excellent question. We did not lose 10% of our providers. Of our
I'm not saying you. I'm saying
right.
You lost 10% of the providers.
The county did, yeah. The county did lost 10% of those providers and those families. Okay, so
the question is,
mm-hmm.
How would this initiative help or put a stop or provide support to these in-home childcare providers who failed in the last 3 years? So this is what you're saying right here. 10% of Greater Rochester providers went out of business in the last 3 years.
Right.
So how's this going to help them?
Anticipate, honestly, I wouldn't anticipate that a lot of those providers would get back into the business.
Well, I'm saying, how would you help them moving forward? How would you help? How is this going to help providers moving forward from failing or from going out of the business?
Oh, okay. Yeah, how to keep them from going out of business. I think there is a risk with the startup. Most of the investment we're asking for would be for startup businesses. How we keep them in business is we have our food program, which provides low-cost food for them. We work with FoodLink to provide free diapers. Part of the training that they get, 30 hours training every 2 years, is not just, I shouldn't say just, it's not only about childcare. It's also about how do I run my business. And a lot of the people that went out of business during COVID, since they weren't our providers, I would say quite possibly weren't getting that kind of training. We worked with ESL for a while. We worked with other folks about, tell me how to run my business. I know how to take care of kids, but how do I take care of my taxes? How do I meet payroll every month? So I think part of the 30 hours training over 2 years is focused on business development and business ideas to help keep them in business. Is that fair?
Yes. Accurate.
Last question, where would you advertise and how would you advertise your program?
We've had a ton of success advertising for our own program. In addition to family child care satellites, we run our own center with about capacity of 204 children on South Avenue. We've had a ton of success with WDKX, with that radio that reaches out to that particular population in the city. We've looked at putting in ads at the RTS stations. We have tried television and Spectrum, and for the return we got on that investment wasn't as good. The other thing we've talked about a lot is community organizations such as churches and getting into the church bulletin every Sunday about, hey, are you looking to start a new business? We could use them. So the only mass media that we might use would probably be DKX. It'd be more, like I said, signage and getting the word out through all the community groups, through IDEO and other groups that we work with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question, and when you're talking about advertising, have you ever thought about using like the Monroe County Library System? They put a lot of signage up. A lot of families attend the library system, as well as, I'm not sure if the Rochester City School District has it, but I know out in the district I represent, they have the virtual backpack at the school where emails get sent out to the families of kids that attend. It might just be another great way. You're already having parents who have young kids who might be doing some in-home daycare or looking to start. Or thank you.
And I might not have touched upon this, going back to your question about how do you make sure that you succeed. We've had some interest talking to our current providers about, I'd like to open a second site. So we would make, funding available to them to open it. They've been successful for 10 years, but I'd like to open a second site. But yeah, the RCS virtual backpack.
Yeah, I don't know if they have the virtual. I know the district, Rockport uses it, but I'm wondering if Rochester City School District probably has something similar.
Yes. We work very closely with the library, children's librarian in particular. So they've been extremely supportive to many centers, especially.
We acknowledge that childcare is really important. We just want to make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck.
Absolutely. Yes. I can tell you that I didn't do an economic survey of all 188 providers, but looked at some of the averages and their expenses, their operations every year is about $14.2 to $14.5 million. So the existing providers are already, they're in 188 spaces, but you put them all together, it's a $14 million business.
Any other comments? Any other questions? All right, I will ask for a motion to approve the execution and delivery of a contract with Rochester Child First Network for the in-home family child care provider program in Monroe County in an amount not to exceed $300,000 for 1 year. Motion moved by Rhett, seconded by Norm. Any comments, questions on that? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Congratulations. Go ye produce more success.
Thank you. And I look forward to, as a partnership, make sure this works. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. Okay. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you. So the next two items here, well, it's one item on your agenda, but it's actually two proposals from our partners over at Rochester Works. And I want to welcome Dave Seeley, the Executive Director of Rochester Works, to the podium. These two requests of our Workforce Development Fund are to support Rochester Works business hiring and training grants program specifically their on-the-job training program and the incumbent worker upskilling program. And then secondly, Rochester Works Enhanced Recovery Services Program. So three very effective workforce development and training programs administered by Rochester Works. And while the information in your packets reflect a 2-year request, we're asking this board to approve a single year with an option to renew in 2024. So with that, thank you, Dave, for joining us today.
Thank you, Anna.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for your time and consideration. And thanks for this isn't germane to my application, so thank you for the approval of the child care initiative. Just because something isn't directly workforce development doesn't mean tangentially it's not equally as important. And frankly, some of our best workforce development programs are transportation, child care, removing barriers to participation in the workforce. So that's selfishly, it's actually very helpful to us because our career advisors will tell you it's one of the most prevalent issues they hear when they're talking to their customers looking to employment, as far as what things are preventing them from being in the workforce. So thank you for that. So onto my application. I'll talk about the business training grants program first. That's a program that historically is funded and will continue to be funded through what's known as the Federal Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. And just a little bit of background, you might know this, but Rochester Works operates the Monroe County Rochester Workforce Development Board. Every community is represented by a workforce development board. Ours is solely by Rochester Works. What our primary job is on behalf of the county and also with the city as a governing body. We administer programs primarily funded through the federal government, up to $10 million a year worth of programs. Our job is to make sure, in addition to providing economic opportunity, that our economy has a workforce that meets the demands of our employers. So with that, we look at existing conditions, we look at 5-year, 10-year projection, and what gaps that exist. And our job is to make sure that our training programs, workforce development for its demands here and in the future. So the business training grant program, in effect, it's somewhat self-explanatory. On-the-job training, certainly not a new concept, but one that we at Rochester Works have seen great efficacy with and really would like to grow more so. The long story short of how it works is generally it's employer driven. So an employer will have an individual that they'd like to hire, but might not have the full skill set to start, as the program suggests, needs training while on the job. So what we do for on-the-job training grant program is we help underwrite some of the risk of bringing on an employee who might need some training, and technically in doing so through grant support, we help account for lost productivity. Historically, we funded up to $5,000, up to 50% of the employee's wages for a fixed period. We've recognized, though, that that's not as competitive as it needs to be, and a lot of employers haven't seen have done a cost-benefit proposal of working with a somewhat government-regulated program, which we try to make it as efficient as possible, but a lot of businesses just say not worth our trouble. So we've recognized growing introductory wages, wanting to make the program more attractive. We increased our cap for the program to $7,500 recently at a workforce development board meeting. Now, does that mean every participant or every business will get $7,500? No, but it just gives us a little bit more flexibility. Because we've seen good results with this program, up to 85%, actually this current year, 90% retention of the employee. It's something we're looking to grow. And you see those target numbers, that's not anything that's going to break the disconnect between the supply and demand of labor. But I will say the best workforce development programs are the ones that invest in the employee, or in this case, invest in the employer to benefit the employee. So we're looking to increase the number of individuals we serve over the next few years. We've appropriated more money through our recently adopted budget. We would seek additional funding from COMIDA to allow us to serve even more individuals. In addition, we would like to reignite an incumbent worker training program that exists, but has, because of relatively flat funding over the past 15 years, has slowly disappeared from our toolbox. And in this case, this is a retention effort, but it's also recognizing that sometimes to provide upward mobility within a company, there's training that needs to accompany that. So in that case, working similar to the on-the-job training grant program, we would work with the company. They would identify the employee that they would like to upskill, and we would provide funding for that. Similar to efforts that I believe COMIDA and the county have funded, or perhaps it's the IDC, but it's an upskilling initiative that serves to retain workers and ensure that people have career pathways that are navigable. I'm happy to entertain questions on this one, or I can jump to the second one. I'll defer to you, Anna.
Thank you, Dave. Do any of the board members have questions about this particular ask, the business hiring and training grants programs?
Let's get them at the end.
Okay.
Ready to pounce them, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so enhanced recovery services, I call this a program we're happy to administer. We're proud of the results, but we wish we didn't have to administer it because it's tied directly to the opioid epidemic and other forms of addiction as well, substance use disorder related. About 5 years ago, with a national grant, Rochester Works opted in to create a program called Enhanced Recovery Services. A testament to my predecessor, Pete Pecor, and his team. We were one of only a few workforce boards in the state to do so. In creating that program, we designed it in a manner that we wanted to create a community network, partnerships with substance use providers, those who are providing clinical supports to those with addiction, working with them. And once an individual really is ready and kind of not through, you're always in recovery, but they're to the point where they're ready to engage and try to attain some economic independence, that's where we've come in. So we've designed a program that really has some very strategic and focused workforce development, employability and career tools, building those with the individual. Participants engage in our 5 steps to rapid employment. There's structured counseling with our career advisors. But the thing that we are most proud of is that we've designed this program in a manner that the primary, not the exclusive, but the primary career pathways we're connecting these individuals with are in recovery services. So peer advocates, certified recovery peer advocates called SERPAs, KSACs, which are counselors. So in effect, we've created this program that has really addressed 2 critical community issues at once. The results of the opioid epidemic and those living with substance use disorder, but also addressing a very, very critical shortage of clinical providers and peer advocates working with those in addiction. And it's again, this isn't something we want to do, but it's something that is refreshing to see those who have kind of gone through that gamut wanting to re-engage as an employee and earn money, but doing so in a manner where they're in fact giving back and helping others who are navigating the same challenges that they've navigated. So it's not just a nice story, but the results speak for themselves, which I hope you can see in your application. Whereas with the on-the-job training grant and the incumbent worker program, we're looking to grow those programs. Full transparency in this case, our federal funding and state funding has run out. Despite receiving every award you can imagine, we were recognized as the state workforce program. The federal government and state government doesn't seem to think it's worthy of funding to continue. We have been, and I'll note, over the past 2 years, successful in obtaining foundation support, and not just local foundations, but the Mother Cabrini Health Foundation with a national health foundation, very competitive, has funded this, is going to continue to fund it through next year. But our historical WIOA funding, the federal funding I spoke of earlier, there's nothing specifically allotted towards that. Now, we will leverage dollars spent with some of our federal funding, but we're really looking to attain some sustainability through non-government funds for this. So this is kind of that middle line, since you're the nexus between government and non-government. So again, this would be looking to sustain the program, but also knowing that we could continue to look for other funding opportunities to grow the program. So that's an overview of the 2, and I welcome any questions.
I have a question. So both programs are awesome. In the past, we've monitored. How are we gonna distribute this money? Is it gonna be quarterly, semi-annually, annually? Are we gonna reevaluate? At what time? Just to,
Typically we distribute quarterly with, we ask for reimbursement backup, so paid invoices. I think that's probably what we're gonna do here as well.
With that quarterly, and they talk about results.
Yeah.
At that time.
thank you.
Dave, any testimonials, success stories, especially with the recovery portion?
Yes, with both, and I wish I had the foresight of our childcare advocates, because I would have prepared some in a slide, but very, very wonderful stories. And just to speak to individuals, especially on the enhanced recovery services side, what they've gone through. And I'll say this, I know in the application, we have MOUs with 14 different providers. Not that we aren't doing God's work, but they're getting the individual to a point where they can even walk through our doors and be comfortable enough and healthy enough to really engage. It's very refreshing to see. The on-the-job training grant program, I will say, there's success stories. A lot of them are, I feel, good for the employer, because I think often they're scratching their head. They want to hire someone, they can't train them. It might be a small business. It's challenging. I'm in meetings a lot with employers, and they just say, if only there was funding to provide on-the-job on-the-job training for the people I want to hire. And I say, well, we have that. And so it's half of the challenge is getting the word out to the employers. But certainly on the substance use side, many good success stories that we tried to capture, and I'd be happy to follow up with Anna and share some of those. Yes, sir.
Dave, on the second page of the enhanced recovery services, there's some wonderful numbers on there about current year goals versus outcomes, and what you plan in the future. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Are you collaborating with other entities like CEO or some of the other programs that are out there?
Geez, I'm trying to think if we have an MOU with CEO. Yeah, I don't know if we have one with CEO. Those largely on the clinical side, and the good thing about that is, you're working with a DePaul, you're working with an East House. While the individual's in training, while they're doing their paid work experience, you have that support in parallel. So, my staff, I'm not going to ask them to be substance use counselors. I think they know enough to be dangerous, but just to have that support, that's really how a good workforce program works.
Just see, what you're doing, having a linkage. You're not going to be the expert on substance abuse, but you will be the expert on job placement and job development and programs that you talk about. First,
we do work with CEO Works, just so you know. Maybe not specific to this program. They're a very good partner to us on the reentry side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your consideration.
Any other questions? All right, I'll ask for a motion to approve the execution and delivery of a contract with Rochester Works, Inc. for the Business Hiring and Training Grants Program for $250,000 and the Enhanced Recovery Services Program of $200,000 for 1 year. Is there a motion? Moved by Norm, seconded by Troy. Any other comments, changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Dave. Good continued success to you and your efforts. Next item.
Thank you, Anne. The next item on the agenda, says Business Center Conference Room. I think everybody who's here in this room today would agree that it'd be nice to have a little bit of natural light and, kind of a better setup. So,
to not sit under that tent.
That too.
My teeth are chattering.
Yes. For many years, we did our meetings at the Watts Center. That wasn't super functional for staff because of all of the logistics and technology infrastructure that we had to bring with us all the way to a separate facility. And back in 2019, the first and second floors of City Place were renovated for the Planning and Development Department, and there was an installation of what we refer to as our business center, a nice, attractive, open-air atrium space, and it was equipped in such a way that was to accommodate co-working capabilities, but has not proved to be super functional in terms of helping us to host bigger meetings there. And we determined that it would be excellent if COMIDA could have its board meetings in the business center and to outfit and equip the business center in such a way to facilitate that. And so Allison Clark has led the charge on this initiative, and she worked with Vargas Associates. It's a WBE here in Rochester, Monroe County, that actually worked with the county on the capital improvement project on the first and second floors. And there is the price tag of this initiative would be at this stage, it's $13,600. And so we're asking the board to give staff the ability to enter into a contract with the Vargas Associates not to exceed $15,000 to help to make the business center equipped for COMIDA meetings. The bulk of this cost has to do with investing in new tables and furniture and equipment, furniture, fixtures and equipment. May I entertain any questions about that? And of course, I can also put staff on the spot to answer questions as well.
Give us more room for visitors.
Yes.
For our audience.
Do you have any concept drawings that we can look at? So,
It's in different layouts.
okay.
With all these kind of tables that you get moved around and configure how it is.
Color themes, you know,
Looking at that, saying you don't understand what's coming. Yeah, we're gonna go with purple and orange.
You asked.
And from a security standpoint, it's more easily accessible. You just walk right in to the sliding doors at the corner of Fitzhugh and Main. And I think it would allow us to better utilize the business center in a way that's in the spirit of what it was originally designed to do.
I'll motion not to exceed 50.
Okay, we have a motion to authorize spending up to $15,000 on furniture and design services to create a conference room. It's been moved by Troy, seconded by Rhett. Any additional questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, next item.
Thank you, Anne. The next item on your agenda says Fast New York grant authorization. And what I want to do is guide us through a conversation, and we would aim to take action and initiate board motion at the September meeting based on the tone and tenor of today's discussion. On May 9th of this year, the governor's office released a press announcement detailing a very significant economic development project opportunity that we all know is Fairlife. And in this press release, it was delineated that it had been agreed upon at that point that Empire State Development would be providing some assistance through their Excelsior Jobs Tax Credit Program in exchange for the job creation commitments associated with that project. But the release also noted that, and I'm quoting directly from the press release, additionally, the Monroe County IDA, COMIDA, is expected to apply to ESD for a $20 million capital grant so that they can work to provide adequate power and other related infrastructure costs to service this site. The New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets, the Monroe County Industrial Development Agency, the Town of Webster, Rochester Gas and Electric, and Greater Rochester Enterprise were additionally instrumental in bringing the company Fairlife to New York State. This was a hotly competitive project and is expected to result in $650 million in capital investments and a little over 230 permanent jobs. And as you heard from this press announcement, it had been agreed upon earlier in the year that the state would provide assistance to the utility to shore up infrastructure at the site as a negotiation vehicle to bring the project to New York State. And what took place after this announcement was made was that COMIDA was prompted to begin work on this application. It's for what is the Fast New York program, which was authorized in the 2023 New York State budget and is a capital grant program administered by Empire State Development. Robin worked very closely with ESD, with Rochester Gas and Electric on putting the information together that was necessary for that application. In county government operations, the county legislature, whenever the county is in receipt of a grant or slated to receive a grant for something, the county legislature moves to accept that grant before it's formal. We are asking, because COMIDA mirrors county operations, we'll be asking this board to formally accept this grant when an award is finalized and when a contract language is finalized. And I want to be clear that while this press release connects everything back to this one very significant project that is still in flux, technically this piece of it is for Rochester Gas and Electric, the only utility servicing Monroe County outside of Eastman Business Park, has resources to equip the slated site in Webster with necessary adequate utilities, because the needs are quite significant. And there were also significant lead times around ordering pieces of equipment, transformers, etc. So this is all, this is a little bit unprecedented, certainly for COMIDA. And I understand that today there will be another announcement having to do with the Fast New York program in another region of the state. So it won't be unprecedented statewide, at least. And I understand that this is a big conversation, and board members and members of the community, members of our local labor community in particular, have a lot of questions and concerns about where things are and who's talking to whom. And, you know, I think bottom line here is that it's a significant opportunity, and it would be the biggest project in COMIDA's history, certainly in terms of CapEx and job creation. And so without further bloviating on my part, I just want to open it up for a broader conversation. I know that and I want to acknowledge Grant Malone is here. He's the president of the Rochester Building and Construction Trades Council. Grant, I understand you wanted to speak a little bit today. I know, Troy, you had some questions and concerns that you wanted to raise. So with that, I'd love to open it up for some dialogue, and we can take it from there.
So as a board member on Thursday, you know, not everybody was involved in the conversation, and I appreciate, you know, educating and communicating with how this is going to play out. But there being that this was the Fast New York, and we're Rochester and Monroe County, I just wanted to make sure that we can thoroughly dot and cross and make sure that we're setting the example of how to best give back to the community when there is a large amount of money in a grant on and I don't want to say but hope and wish. If a project isn't purchased and they don't even own the property yet, if there's bids going out where our local contractors are spending thousands of dollars to put numbers together to present, we were told at the first meeting that there was only going to be a small part of the project released in the plan room. There is more than just that first phase released in the plan room. There's drawings out at the street. That has us concerned. We want to make sure that this is vetted out the right way. We want to make sure that our G&E will include the local folks to have an opportunity to distribute this money and spend it accordingly out of Albany. So there was some questions, and we're on it. We're going to work on this, but I think the main goal was to just make sure we do this the right way. Just if this is going to happen, I did see in the draft that RG&E and Fairlife were listed in the draft paperwork of the process. So at what time is the question is what time, if Fairlife does decide not to commit to Rochester, what happens? Do we reset? Do we, if their infrastructure and RG&E is still in motion, what happens? Is there going to be, different issues that we're going to have to look at? So I appreciate taking the time, but I don't know, Grant, if that's.
Thank you, Troy. Grant Malone from the Rochester Building Trades Council. I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity. And Troy explained it very well, but I think our question, to back up a little bit to your point on it, is this Fast New York is a new program. And I've reached out to the Senate and Assembly for some language on how it's going to be used, and I can't get an answer. And I think our question to this board is it going to fall under the normal COMIDA requirements for the funding being used in the project? Well, when I say, I mean local labor, things like that. Do we know that yet, or don't we know that? That's our big question today.
And so it's a great question.
Yep.
You're right. So technically at the outset, no, because this isn't a pilot agreement,
Okay.
a sales and use tax exemption, it wouldn't be subject to our local labor policy. However, the contract with Rochester Gas and Electric is still being sorted out. And this is something that we can perhaps entertain with RG&E. And Robin Finnerty and I met with RG&E on Friday. They did indicate that they desire to use all local labor and that they primarily work with union labor. And I was hoping perhaps, Rachel, you could talk a little bit about where we are with the legal language undergirding this process.
So there is currently a draft agreement out and which has been shared with the board between Empire State Development and COMIDA that the terms of the grant. There are a number of obligations placed on COMIDA to complete the project, provide plans and specifications, etc. All of those obligations will be passed along to RG&E pursuant to a contract between COMIDA and RG&E. Further to Anna's point, we will dictate the terms of that agreement, not the state. And if it is the board's desire to include a local labor requirement in that contract, that is certainly up for negotiation and discussion with RG&E, which Anna and Robin, I think, started on Friday.
Thank you, Robin. I appreciate that. And it's good information to hear. Just a little history lesson for the people that have been around for a while in the construction industry. RG&E historically has brought out-of-state contractors in Rochester to do work. That's our main concern here. So thank you, Robin, for the explanation and for the opportunity, and hopefully keep us posted.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
We'll take today's conversation as a formal request to bring that up in our negotiations with Rochester Gas and Electric. Thank you. So again, this is a discussion about this grant. It's dotted line connection to the Fairlife project, while in fact, the grant program itself is set up to increase the inventory of shovel-ready sites in the state of New York. And this certainly would lead to this site in Webster becoming shovel-ready, whether that be for Fairlife or for another project opportunity. So we're not going to ask that the board formally move to accept the grant. We want to open it up for conversation. So are there other questions or comments or concerns?
Is there someone else that wanted to speak? Oh, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ray Ryerty. I'm the business manager for IBW 26. Just wanted to solidify the fact that this will be entertained with local contractors. Obviously, that's very important to us, what we do around here. And then it's going to be a fair bid process across the board. And moreover, I guess maybe you could answer this question initially by mine. Should this be prevailing wage then, right? Is it grant by New York State? Is it not?
To our knowledge, the grant does not carry a prevailing wage requirement.
I wouldn't know.
It's a state program. I don't believe the Fast New York grant program is a prevailing wage requirement. It's not a COMIDA division grant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as the controlling entity, I would just maybe have more information in that regard.
For whatever reason, some of the New York State grants don't. We'll of course conduct an analysis to determine whether an overall project is subject to prevailing wage. When we receive an application, we do it for every project, so we'll do that on the overall project.
So just for my own information, then it's a $20 million grant on a $27 million project.
It is a $20 million grant.
So it would be obviously more than the 30% required to trigger the rail.
In the 30%, however, that takes into all the funding back on all the funding sources on the project. So the state grant, what you're referring to is the statute that we will look at. I don't know that that same for the Fairlight project. I don't know that that same statute applies. I don't think it. I candidly don't know.
Okay, understood. And then just one more question, I guess, is we'll call it the conduit of the money coming forth from the state. And there's no local labor requirements, obviously, there's stipulation from the state in that regard. Does not the COMIDA requirements then become the guardrails for that money?
So that's back to the point that we made. Yes, we are going to negotiate the contract directly with RG&E. The state funds and state contract, that's up to the state, but we'll work with RG&E. And again, if it's the will of the board to include the local labor requirements, which based on this requested, the board can entertain that can be a provision within the contract with RG&E and COMIDA.
Very good. So I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So move on to anything else. Oh, the dashboard.
Yes, I think Greg covered it well earlier in his remarks about where we are in terms of application and agency fees. And of course, we had some great discussion about our workforce development fund. We had a lighter agenda this month. We expect some more projects, some bigger projects to come to us in the coming months. So you're going to see these numbers change. And in particular, on the horizon, we have, I think, a solar project coming our way. So that might impact the box that you see here at the bottom of the page. But again, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And are there any questions about the dashboard, or shall we move right along?
Okay, thank you. Any other issues a board member would like to raise? Or
Yeah, just,
try?
we heard that, Maztec is now going to separate from Li-Cycle. Is there anything that would change in our COMIDA process with any of that? Is there going to be any? Is Pike and Conductor, I hear, is the new entity to take over? They had one on the warehouse. Is that just gonna extend over and we'll have like a project modification?
In light of the fact that they're in the GC on the hub.
Yeah, what, is there anything in there that's gonna?
So the local labor, well, all of our requirements are on like static conductor and Li-Cycle. And in Pike Conductor receive benefits directly on the warehouse. And now they're going to be acting as GC on the Li-Cycle hub. They will be required to comply with all terms and conditions of the benefit package that went to Li-Cycle, including the use of local labor, of course, and that requirement.
Any formality to just bring them in front of the board to acknowledge the local labor waiver process? Is there any anticipated 45 days?
Not typically. We will, we have a constant working relationship with Pike Conductor on this project and working on financing for the project. So I'm happy to set up a call with the principals over there and just make sure they're fully aware of the local labor policy and complying with it.
So there was a badging in process over there that Maztec put into play.
Okay.
Now, that was done for security on the property, more so I would assume because of where it's positioned. Is that going to still, and these are just some of the,
yeah,
I guess maybe we'll.
I didn't know that they got the badging system on and going.
Yeah, there's a safety process, a badging in process.
Oh, that, okay.
Yeah.
We'll add, I don't know if that's a system that's going to leave with the general contractor. That said, I don't exactly, Maztec isn't completely off the job. Just some of the larger.
They've been These
four
four largest
packages
bids
that
have been
gone out.
descoped from Mass Tech and awarded to Pike. And so Mass Tech is still there, but Pike is taking on a role of greater prominence and leadership.
So there might still be a relationship between Pike and Aztec.
Yeah, I
That's the
get the impression
process.
that Mazda was staying on site was in just a different, less broad capacity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the comment was that Tech has the contract in place, so like he used porta potties as an example, I think is what he used, I believe. They have the agreement to have those on site. Yeah, that isn't gonna change.
So there's gonna be some crossovers. Okay.
Okay, any other discussion items?
Just a comment versus for the Fast New York grant and Fairlight. Sounds to me from the discussion that the discussion that will go on between COMIDA and RG&E, even though it has nothing to do with the New York State grant, we have some say as far as the agreement between the two. And I think that that's promising.
Very. And we're not getting the cart before the horse here.
But the other thing we should not lose sight of is the ability to have shovel-ready projects in place. When we have shovel-ready projects, we are in a better position for development. What was the name of the company on Driving Park at Philip Banks Way? The popcorn provider? What's Farmer John's. Farmer John's wouldn't be here. No.
and Frank was there.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't have that site in place using
Ready to
EDA
go,
monies,
right.
DEC monies, shovel ready. It was there. They came in and Frank Grugia was able to do that. So I'm really excited about having shovel ready sites in place for, especially for me.
Anything else? All right, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Rat, for a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Opposed?